We've been exposed to a number of grandiose jobs promises, a number of slick press conferences regarding possible jobs in the future. And right now we're being hit with some very deep middle-class job losses. 1,400 jobs here in Indianapolis, 700 up in the Huntington area, and that's before we even have a chance to discuss the 600 jobs we're going to lose at Alcoa when they're shutting down a smelter. This is a middle-class calamity here in the state, one that's been suffering very low wage growth, and one that's looking to get back on its feet in a way that allows the middle class and people trying to get into the middle class a path towards a better future. But more importantly, in terms of its relevance for this session, I think it really calls into question the overall economic development strategy of this state over the past decade. I mean, look at what's happened. First, daylight savings time was the answer to everything, and then passing right to work to prohibit and make it harder for people to join together and bargain for higher wages. That was the answer to everything. Getting rid of the common construction wage, which causes a lot of people to have opportunities to work for less. That was supposed to be the answer. Deep corporate tax cuts were supposed to be the answer. And none of these things have worked. We continue to have very low economic growth. We continue to have negligible, if not negative, wage growth, and we don't see any real improvements here. So what does this mean for the few weeks we have left? I believe that there's a couple of different things to conclude, and at least it brings it into focus for me. First of all, this is a very, very bad time to be doing a consumer tax increase. We need an infrastructure plan that does not raise taxes on people like the ones that are losing their jobs right now. People that have just been told by their executives that they're moving to Mexico and there's not much can be done about it. We need an infrastructure plan that uses the resources we've already collected from people and keeps the pressure off middle-class consumers. That's imperative. The other thing, whatever we're doing here isn't working. That's becoming more and more evident every day. This is the time to pass civil rights protections because we need to change the image of Indiana fast. Because right now the image is that we're an old Rust Belt state that is happy to let manufacturing jobs slip away and doesn't have any plans for bringing in ones to take their place. We have to change our image. And the only way to do that is immediately available to us is to act on the civil rights language. Even though the Senate failed to do it, and there's been, at least in the short term, efforts to block it in the House, we've got to change the game. And that's one way to do it. We need to make ourselves a destination point for a different, vibrant, and high-paying type of employer. And that's something we can do today. I get a little bit concerned also when I look back at some of the IEDC figures and where they've given out their economic assistance. Most of that assistance goes to large employers. I think about 87% of it is the number that I saw. That is, that makes us wonder what it is that we're getting for our investments. We're getting people that unpatriotically scoff at moving jobs outside the country. We get people who may or may not owe some money back to the state of Indiana because they didn't do the things that they promised to do when they had economic development assistance. And we see, a deterioration in a large sector of our economy. So I don't think it's a very happy day when you see a headline like that. And it really has to make us take stock of where we are in the current legislative session. And we have to get realistic about what it's going to take for our middle class to grow and to make this a place that people are moving to instead of moving away from. So with that, everybody, I'll be happy to take any questions about a whole host of matters, because I understand a few other things happened this week.
Scott, what makes you confident that Carrier represents the trend and not a Geico or Toyota represents the trend?
This, okay, let me tell you what. All those jobs announcements that they put out are promises in the distant future. When you see a jobs cut happen, it happens today. Those people are getting the news today. And it concerns me that we have an administration that only ever wants to be available for the jovial exchange with laughing onlookers about better days ahead. And they don't seem to be around when you have panicked households that don't know how they're going to be able to adapt to this changing economy. Headlines like this are reality. The other headlines are, at times, fantasy. The big difference.
You've had a couple of members offer LGBT amendments in committee today, and they got ruled out of order and didn't even hear them. What do you think about that? Well,
look, I expect those efforts are going to continue. They can't rule things out of order forever, and if they do keep that up, that's going to, I think, undermine the sincerity of the process. You can't use a process argument to the public for failure to act on civil rights that people care about very deeply. You may have individual chairpersons get rattled. Well, that happens. They're human beings, but they can't get rattled forever. And they have to understand that it's something that's deeply cared about. And if they want to stand in the way of it for obtuse and impenetrable reasons, that's up to them, but that'll be done publicly.
Rick,
Go
ahead. I'm going on another topic.
Go ahead, Tony.
Representative Young ballot signature issue. What are your thoughts on that?
498 is not 500. I don't know what else to say about it. If 498 equals 500, then that's a pretty cute trick.
Ironically, Tony and I were going to ask about the same thing. Regardless of what happens with Congressman Young, is that a good law? Should that change for 2018?
It is as it stands, a reasonable law. I mean, it exists because you want to ensure that the candidates standing for very high office have some degree of credibility and have some degree of organization to be able to wage a campaign. I remember something when I was younger over in Illinois. Remember when the Lyndon LaRouche candidates won at a low turnout election? Okay, that's why you have this signature process, in order to make sure that embarrassments like that don't happen. If somebody's going to run for U.S. Senate, honestly, I think they ought to have their act together. And having a field staff to go get 500 signatures here and there really isn't that big of a deal. This is done all the time. I got 5,000 signatures on a petition in Northwest Indiana. People just doing it in their spare time for not a dime. It's not an unreasonable requirement. And if there's interest in changing the requirement, then it ought to be substituted with something that also ends up being a vetting process for frivolous and non-serious candidacies.
The Election Commission is obviously 2-2 Republicans and Democrats, so a lot of these end in ties. What do you think? Do you suspect that Republicans will kick him off or not?
If they're going to keep him on the ballot, I'm eager to hear the explanation. I can't come up with one now. If there's truly a question about the legitimacy of an individual signature, I suppose that can be a separate discussion. But if the number truly doesn't meet the standard, that's a pretty tough standard to overcome. And then if they overturn that, then we have to wonder how they feel about a host of other election matters.
Last week you had some compliments Representative Smaltz's meth bill.
Mhm.
The Senate's meth bill came over this week. What's your thought on that, the pharmacist Q&A bill?
I don't, Eric, I haven't delved into it deeply yet. I think what the House passed makes a lot of sense. I would hope we stick pretty close to that. I mean, you saw the bipartisan enthusiasm for finally reaching an outcome that appeared to be within the realm of common sense. That doesn't happen as much as it should. I was very satisfied with the explanations, and because I think they struck the right balance in the House bill, I really would be reluctant to play too much with that balance.
Regarding the carrier announcement, what do you think the government or the governor's role is in, trying to, I know obviously trying to keep something like that from happening with policies, that type of thing, but when it's about to happen, like what is the governor's role in either trying to dissuade people from carrying that out or to talk to the public about it?
Well, that's the first thing you do, is you talk to the public. I understand Mayor Hogsett's already putting together a task force to try to help people deal with the after effects. People expect their executives to sort of embody the anger that they feel. They want to feel that the governor is upset alongside of them and is going to do everything possible to lay down in front of a train that's speeding towards them. And I have to say that's to sort of emphasize that that's not a partisan observation. That's one of the reasons people get frustrated with President Obama. Sometimes they don't feel like he's embodying their emotions enough. And it's very important that a governor stand behind that bully pulpit and make sure that people understand that he's on their side. That's psychologically very important for a state and for a community and for a people, because when there's a lot of pain ahead, the chief executive immediately needs to be thinking about, how do I either lessen this loss, or what am I going to do to make sure that they're not going to feel it in the future? You know what? Maybe governors aren't omniscient, but they can give people a little bit of hope, and they can give people the feeling that they are ready to lead them through whatever mess is surrounding us at the moment. That's you can never understate the emotional importance of a chief executive.
Can this governor do this? Because he's spent 3 years basically talking up the good things and
Right. Dan. We've had about over 3 years of observation now. I think that may be within him, but I'm a little bit skeptical. He seems to always believe that the problem isn't what's been done. The problem is the way you've talked about what's been done, and that just doesn't. That just only gets you so far. He said, and it's amazing. I know when he speaks to his core supporters, he's able to make appeals oftentimes to their hearts and the way they feel about things and the hope that they see in front of them. But when things don't go his way, he seems to have a propensity to retreat. And that's actually the time we need him out in front talking to everybody.